And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Wednesday morning's flying weather, IFR here, Brooks Range and then southwestward across the Seward Peninsula and then right on down the southwest coast into the southern Kuskokwim Valley and in toward Bristol Bay there. And then a little bit of a break behind that and the next system with more IFR pushing in. Otherwise, IFR tomorrow for southern Kenai Peninsula area into Prince William Sound, all the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle, as well as areas along the Alaska Range. For the afternoon, this system comes eastward here with some IFR still along the southwest coast. A lot of IFR here over the northern interior and a band with a trough here extending down into the western Alaska Range. Still some IFR here along the North Gulf Coast. And over the Panhandle, starting to improve though, central southeast coast here becoming marginal VFR. Not too bad into Cook Inlet down to Kodiak Island, some VFR at times. And for the morning hours, that area pushes up to the southwest coast here. So a lot of IFR, northern Bering Sea, right into the southwest interior and also into the Alaska Range from the Kuskokwim Valley here into the Madanuska-Susitna Valley as well, right up to the central Alaska Range area there. A lot of IFR also up here from the Koyukuk Valley across the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast and IFR northern and eastern Panhandle. Next system coming up here, spreading IFR into Adak and Atka, and then that merges up with what's already along the southwest coast here for Thursday afternoon. A lot of moisture here with frontal boundary here in the lower center back to the west there. So some pretty good IFR rolling right on up into the eastern northern Bering Sea as well as Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta and spilling east of the Kuskokwim Mountains. IFR along and south of the Brooks Range with some VFR here over the Tanana Valley area and from the Yukon Flats, especially over toward the border in the central Copper River Basin. VFR in Cook Inlet, southern Susitna Valley, most of Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay looking pretty good. And the southeast coast has areas of IFR as well as the North Gulf Coast. Passes tomorrow, Anatuvik and Adigan, both occasional IFR, or mostly IFR throughout the day Wednesday. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, rainy, will go marginal for that pass, and then back to IFR for windy. IFR for Isabel, Mintasta, marginal VFR, Tanita, marginal, Portage, IFR, Chilkoot and White, also IFR. Freezing levels here, 2,000 to 4,000 feet down over the southeast coast, and then some 2,000 foot freezing levels pulling northward there in toward Adak and Atka at the surface here, right across Cook Inlet and then down in across the central Bering Sea. Icing system coming eastward here, pushing a band of considerable moderate rime icing here along in advance of the front. St. Matthew Island across the Pribilofs right in toward Kuskokwim Bay and then southward to the Alaska Peninsula, Unalaska Island area. Also some pretty good icing threats up here along the north slope in the Arctic coast area, and could be some considerable moderate icing for the North Gulf Coast as well. And for the jet stream, we've got west-southwest flow up to 135 knots blowing right across the southeast coast there. Out to the west, westerly flow up to 140 knots there over the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. 9,000 feet, low pressure over the Bering Sea here. Northwest winds here increase in velocity up to 85 knots there near and just south of the Aleutians, and then become more southwesterly and diminish. Kind of a change in the pattern here. Instead of south to north flow, we're now looking at more of a westerly flow southwest in the interior at about 40 knots, and that extends all the way across the Gulf of Alaska right into the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, much the same flow, west-southwest here across the Gulf and toward the southeast coast, and then it diminishes as it hits the coastline there at about 40 knots. Low pressure up here over the Seward Peninsula, southwest 40 knots there over the interior, and stronger winds with this system coming in, much stronger low pressure area. So we're looking at 65 knots southwest winds there. Eastern Aleutians heading in toward the Alaska Peninsula. Turbulence, look for considerable moderate turbulence here. Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, and the Aleutians here westward to about Amchitka Island or so. Also up in the interior, along and in the lee of the Alaska Range, occasional moderate turbulence as well in that area, and also for the northern panhandle from Yakutat eastward in toward Glacier Bay and maybe Lynn Canal.